So this video is actually inspired by a question that I received over on my Instagram last week, actually, when I asked for questions about South Italy. And the question was this: what would my now Italian self tell my old UK self? So if you want to know, watch this video, but most importantly, if you have questions yourself about life in South Italy, then head on over to my Instagram page and make sure every Sunday you submit them and I choose one to answer in my newsletter, which is completely free and arrives in your inbox every week. I will link to it up here. And as we're on the subject of telling you about my stuff, if you haven't already, please hit subscribe. Let's get into the video. No one is interested in you as much as you. This has been something that I have to continuously remind myself of when I'm living here in Italy, but especially taking it back to before I moved to Italy. Consider that one of my friends who knows YouTube pretty well said to me, I should start a YouTube channel way back in 2018 and document the entire process of moving from London to Italy, but I didn't. I waited 3 years before I felt brave enough and worthy enough to start this channel. And why that was simply because I was so concerned about what people would think about me or their opinions of my content, etc. But the reality is, even though we may be interested in to know what's going on with other people, we are primarily more interested in what's going on in our own lives and in our own selves. And as I've created content on this channel especially, I have been able to see how people are interested to a certain degree in what I do, but primarily there is a personal interest for themselves, either because they want to move to Italy or they want to visit Italy. So this is a really true concept. And I think even like through day-to-day life here in Italy, sometimes I get myself caught up because my Italian isn't fantastic. And if I want to speak, I sometimes get a little bit tongue-tied. But the reality is people here have got their own lives and their own troubles and concerns. They're really not that bothered if I say a word in the masculine form instead of the feminine form. Like, it, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that important. I think the first piece of advice I'd give my former self would be this: like, literally don't get so caught up in what people think about you, because chances are they're more worried about themselves than they are about you. Italy won't make your problems disappear. I know this can be a bitter pill to swallow, but trust me when I tell you, you take you wherever you go. And so if you move to Italy with the hope that you're going to feel better, there may be aspects of your life that certainly do improve, but essentially if you're not happy within yourself, you are also not going to be happy within yourself here in Italy. It's going to be exactly the same experience, just in a different environment. And this has been my experience when I moved to Italy 5 years ago. I wasn't in a very happy place in my life. And I remember thinking that, you know, living in Italy would change that for me. And in many ways it certainly has done, but it wasn't the process of moving here that did that. It was the fact that I did the work on myself to make myself feel better. And you know, the reality was that just over a year after I moved here, I had a breakdown because a number of factors, but primarily because I hadn't dealt with those issues that I'd retained when I moved here. So I think accepting the fact that a country is not going to fix you is the first piece of advice I would give my former self. And also just recognizing that, yes, it might not fix you, but it can certainly help you to change and to grow and to learn more about yourself as a person. I credit Italy for picking myself back up onto my feet again and for literally helping me to see things from a different perspective, more so than I probably ever would have been able to back in the UK. And so this sometimes is worth noting, but essentially you cannot give that huge responsibility to a country. If you have problems in your life, they are down to you to resolve, and moving countries is not going to change that. If anything, it will just amplify what is already lingering beneath the surface. So I think if you move here with that acceptance and you know that you have to do work on yourself, if there's a part of your life that you're not happy with, then I think that's a more realistic way to approach a situation. People are the same wherever you go. I think we often put Italian people on a kind of pedestal in thinking that they are some of the friendliest and kindest people that you'll ever meet. And whilst I have met some incredible people here so far in Italy who absolutely deserve to be on that pedestal, I have also met people who are rude, unkind, inconsiderate, selfish, arrogant. It's a mixed bag, as it is in any other country around the world. And so I think when you realise this, you have a much better experience here. I think thinking back to my former self, I definitely held on to that naivety a little bit. I believed that Italian people were, in a way, nicer than British people, but it's a very generalized viewpoint because of course you can have some very wonderful and friendly British people as well. So I think, you know, accepting that Italy is like any other country around the world will also help with your interactions with people. So when you come across people who aren't quite as friendly as you had hoped, it's not going to come as a shock to you. And so I think this is something that I wish maybe I had known about beforehand and really understood. But essentially, I think that if you move to the south of Italy, you will come across some incredibly friendly, warm-hearted people who will make you feel so welcome and at home. And that is, as I've said in many other videos, what has kept me living in South Italy for the entire 5 years that I've been here so far. And so I think that's an important part. But if you've been watching some of my recent videos, you will also know that I've been kind of struggling with the other side to life here in Palermo, because it's not always easy to live here. And that is caused by people who don't have respect for their city and are quite arrogant in the way they treat things. And so this is where you have to understand that life here is a mixed bag, and that comes down to the fact that there are so many different personalities, people, different backgrounds, upbringing, so many factors that cause people to behave in different ways. And so I think realizing that people aren't perfect here will help immensely if you choose to live here. 100%, I would tell myself, my former self, not to lose myself here in Italy. When I first moved to Italy, I definitely went through a period where I lost myself. I wanted to disassociate myself from my culture. I wanted to immerse myself 1000% into the Italian life. I changed my name to be like the Italian version. I just wanted to be this person who was really embracing life here. But I did it at the expense of who I am as a person. And at some point I arrived where I was like, what am I doing? I'm not Italian, I'm British. Just because I live here in Italy, it doesn't mean that I need to forget my culture, my roots, and ultimately what makes me, me. And so I think this is the important part. It's finding that balance, striking that balance between embracing where you live and really adopting the culture and learning from it to help you to enjoy and enhance your experience here, but also retaining who you are as a person, your beliefs, your culture, your heritage, which essentially is what makes you, you. And so I feel now I'm definitely at that point, 5 years on, where I'm very proud of my London roots, and I don't try to hide them. I don't try to pretend I'm something I'm not. But essentially, I do recognise that it's very easy to do this, and you almost feel like you have to in order to be like considered living life as a proper expat, but it's not true. There is a balance. Immerse yourself, of course, it's important. In fact, it's necessary in order to enjoy your life here, but it doesn't mean that it has to come at the expense of you forgetting who you are as a person. Learn to observe people. This is definitely something I would tell my former self, because as you all know, if you've been following me for some time, learning Italian has been a struggle and still continues to be a struggle for me. Not because I don't want to learn it, I feel I always have to justify myself on this channel about this experience, but simply because of my lifestyle, because maybe I prioritize things in a different way in my day. There's lots of reasons, and I work a lot as well, add that to the list. But essentially, not speaking Italian has led me to observe people more, and it's a skill I've really enhanced over the course of 5 years. And what I've learned which we all know to a certain degree, is that actions always speak louder than words. I have seen people who will say sweet things out of their mouth, but their body language, their eye contact, it's telling you a completely different story. And I've also been in situations here where people don't think you understand Italian and they say some rather horrible things. Like I had a situation last year where when I had my hair cut with the fringe and the bob, as you'll remember, I'll put a picture here if you don't remember, I had some people who I work with actually, kind of standing behind me, like doing like the Addams Family Wednesday song, like as if I couldn't understand. And I think this is actually really important because like from that moment I observed those people and I was like, I know you, I got you, I know what you're about. And it's kind of made me more wary in the future. But essentially, you only learn that when you start to read people in a different way and not take everything at face value. So I would say that has been the biggest thing that I continue to do even to this day, even though I understand Italian so much better now, even though my biggest problem at the moment is trying to speak in Italian, but my understanding is so much better. I realise that I still retain this skill and I'm proud to retain it because I think it helps in so many different situations. Sometimes people can't effectively communicate through words, yet they're able to do so in different ways. And then that's where this skill really plays a part. So yes, I would definitely advise my former self to learn to read people, learn to observe people, because it will definitely help you out when you're living here in Italy. Embrace it all. This is probably the biggest piece of advice I would give my former self. You're going to have highs, you're going to have lows, you're going to have amazing experiences, you're going to have moments where you're like, I want to go back to my home country, but essentially embrace it all, because even in those more difficult, challenging moments, you will learn something from them, you will grow, you will make changes that will positively influence your life in the long run. Like, there are many different ways to view the things that happen to us in our life, but essentially, if you embrace it all, you really do make the most of this incredible experience. It's not easy to live in another country. In fact, it's the one thing that has pushed me so far out of my comfort zone to a place that I've never experienced before, but it is definitely an incredible thing to do. And so I feel like you need to embrace it, and you need to not forget the reason, as I always say, why you wanted to move to another country in the first place, and hold on to that in those more difficult moments. But definitely embrace life here in Italy. Like, life here in Italy is a crazy roller coaster of everything, like joy, sadness, bitterness, anger, oh my goodness, everything, every kind of emotion you can think of. You're on this constant roller coaster, but every day I'm learning something, if not about myself, about life. I'm learning a different way to approach things. I'm learning how to be a better communicator. There's so many different aspects that I'm constantly learning, and that is the magic of living here in Italy. So essentially, I think that looking back to my former self, these would be the things that I would share with her. And I would essentially say, just do it. Just go make it happen, and learn as you go along. You'll never stop learning. You will literally be a lifelong learner here in Italy.